I am so sorry, Essendon fans. Please, save me.
What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to episode number 6 of the Zero Access Footy podcast. Once again, back at you with no access, and I'm joined alongside my co-host, Bemethan Gadian. He is known as the Premiership Quarter Online, and today we are here to discuss a whole range of things, from extreme apologies to continued laughter. There's plenty to go through here this week, and I'm really excited, as per usual,
With
to get
no
through
footy
it all.
talk on top of it as well.
A little bit. We'll see how it goes.
It's mainly a laugh at Essendon podcast with a little bit of.
Well, that's what the
footy
comments would have decided, and we'll go through a few of those with you guys. I'm really excited for that one. I'm really excited for that one.
Because I know who they're going for.
I'm really excited for that one. All right, but of course, be sure, if you find yourself enjoying the podcast here today, be sure to leave a like if you're watching in video form and subscribe to the Zero Access Footy podcast on YouTube. We want to try and get those numbers up over there. Instagram as well, that is Zero Access Footy, and same with TikTok. So be sure to do all of those. TikTok has been doing very well. Not so well for self-esteem and mental health, but other than that, who cares? Who cares? We'll be all right. We've got ourselves a whole round. Yeah, that's about the face you've been making for the entire week, mate.
I really don't care, to be honest. It's just all a little joke, but you know, they can think it affects me.
We'll go through it and we'll have a bit of fun with it at the end
They
of
can
the day.
think it affects me.
We'll have a bit of fun with it, but let's have a look at round 3, because round 3, oh God.
Pretty action packed, to be honest.
So I went through the ladder last week, and it seems that it's caught back up to me as we are now sitting
Has it?
outside the 8.
Are you sure it's caught up to you? We're in North Melbourne.
That's what I'm saying. We're
Yeah.
outside the 8.
Where did you predict North Melbourne?
I did predict him 10th, but we were in the 8 before, so like I'm not as happy.
It's okay. It's okay.
It's all right with a positive percentage and all. And God, we're up against Gold Coast. We're up against Gold Coast next. Jesus Christ. That's what it says there, right? Yeah, up next. We've also got St Kilda off of 2 wins now. Well done for you.
I swear to God, Gold Coast were playing Adelaide next.
I think they are playing Adelaide next.
So, what?
But it does say Geelong.
I'm
yeah,
so
that's
confused.
weird. That's really weird.
That's very, very interesting.
Okay.
I want to check this now.
Yeah, I thought it was.
swear that's what was happening.
I thought it was different. Anyways, we're going to have a look through the
Gold
results
Coast,
here.
it is Gold Coast Adelaide.
Yeah, I'm not sure what's
That's
going
so-
on there.
Oh, well.
North are playing someone else. North are playing
Sydney.
That's right. But you can see here, we're talking about round 3 / opening round kind of recovery. We've
Yep.
got ourselves plenty of different matchups that went plenty of different ways. So
Big
we
time.
obviously had our issues with the MCG only hosting D's Suns, and my God, if you saw that crowd, you don't
8,000.
understand. Actually, it was 8,000. Oh my God.
I thought you knew the number, which is where
I
you're
saw
going
how
with
empty
this.
the crowd was.
I know. There was like one bay that was kind of full, and that was it.
Oh my goodness, God.
Insane.
Just weird scheduling for that one.
Yeah.
And then the fact that Saints Tigers got Marvel, Carlton Dogs
Guess-
got Marvel.
guess how many fans were at Saints Tigers?
How many?
Just take a guess. Take a random guess.
35,000.
42. Almost.
That's a good amount.
Compared to 8,000.
Yeah, there's some good crowds, but the fact
Mm-hmm.
that MCG only brought 8 is insane. We'll have a look through results, though. We want to look through
Wow.
those. Those are obviously a lot more important as the year goes on. Bombers
Jesus
finally
Christ.
showing some signs. They defeated Port Adelaide at Marvel by 12 points. Some may have seen it coming, however, at the same time, we didn't have much faith in Essendon. We
Nope.
certainly had our
Well,
fun last week.
I almost had faith in Essendon.
Yeah.
I said it was going to be a much better performance. I just thought that there was going to be a bit too much class from Port Adelaide and some of their players. But when Connor Rose absolutely shits the bed, it doesn't help.
Yeah, I think
He
Connor
was very
Rosé,
poor and trying to lead from the midfield, very disappointing.
Connor Rosé, when he's on, puts that team on top
Mm-hmm.
because he's a very smart ball user when he does have it. But as shown, when he isn't, especially with Butters out,
Yeah.
the others aren't. Also, especially in the midfield, right?
Yeah.
I think the others aren't holding the weight as well. So if we have a look here at this one, I'm trying to think
One
in the
thing-
midfield. Jason Horne-Francis, did he do much?
He wasn't fantastic, probably a bit more impactful up forward. But the one that is a bit frustrating is Willem Drew. He loves to play that tagging role where he goes to the opposition's bets mid and allows the Butters and the Rosés and the Horne-Francis to be able to run loose. He wasn't on merit, and that's a really questionable decision from Ken Hinkley, whether he was trying to open up something else or whether he was just not aware of it, which would be even worse. He didn't put Willem Drew to merit. And after Merritt's 36 touches and 4 goals last week, very questionable decision.
Yeah, he ended up
Very
with 34 in this one, so not as much, but at the
No.
same time, Xavier Dersma had the 29. Joe Caldwell, although not as impactful with the ball, still effective. Dylan Shield had a pretty decent one with
Much
25.
better than what he was
Sam
last week.
Durham with 28. So like there's
Consistently being good.
there's people in there who are
Yeah.
getting touches. And you look at Port Adelaide, Christian Morais was a great one to see in there. But yeah, Rosie's 22. After a 39 against Richmond shows that maybe against real competition,
Oh.
you had to, didn't you? Maybe against competition that isn't kind of heading towards bottom 4 levels.
Yeah.
He struggles, especially without Zach Butters. Are you really saying Essendon? You did have him bottom 4, but
I
I'd
think
like
we
to
both
think,
had them bottom 4.
No, I didn't. Did I? I hope not. I don't
you
agree
might
with past me if that's the case. But Ollie Wines, a goal and 31 disposals.
He
A very
looks
very
good,
very
yeah.
nice showing from him.
But
and Jace Burgoyne, the other one. Jace Burgoyne. He's
been good.
continuing to get more
I
and
think,
more
yeah.
impact on the game.
Him and Kane Farrell are looking to sort of take up that Dan Houston role without directly replacing him.
Yeah.
But in terms of like anything around the midfield, Ben Mackay was kind of good, but he got torched early by Georgiades, but Georgiades didn't get much of it afterwards. And then Port Adelaide up forward didn't really have too much elsewhere. Rioli was starting in the midfield, which is very questionable. But we can talk about both of these clubs later because they are talking points. Then we also had Carlton Dogs, which I didn't get to watch. I was out on Friday night.
Neither did I, but I know for a fact Carlton held this game in the balance, much like they did in round one,
Yeah.
and let the game slip again, which now puts them at 0-3, which from stats that I can remember off the top of my head is like...
Not many.
Well, they've started 0-3 that many times in the
7 times
in the 21st century.
Seven
whatnot.
times since the 18 club league. The
Oh my
only
God,
club,
it's that early.
the only club
late,
to
sorry.
not do it once is St Kilda.
Awesome. Where's your premiership?
It's been 12 years in an 18 club league,
Some
mate.
have won 3, mate. Some have won 3.
Shut up. Your club hasn't won any. Okay?
Yeah,
you
I'm
can't
not.
talk
I'm not
either.
saying my club though. I'm saying the clubs that have won 3 have done it in an 18-team competition.
Okay.
Either way, it's not important. We just know that this is the worst possible start that Carlton could have gone off to. Obviously,
Doesn't
these
get
were
any easier either.
these are matchups. Right, this one against the Dogs is one they should have taken.
Mm-hmm.
I believe they had barely any outs as well.
Who? Carlton
I'm trying to
or
think.
Bulldogs? They both
Carlton.
teams had plenty outs. Both teams had plenty outs.
Well, I'm trying to think within the core of Carlton. They had Patrick Cripps, Charlie Curnow. Doesn't look like Harry Mackay in there. So maybe
Mackay
that-
didn't play.
So they were going off the one
Walsh.
forward. Jack Silvani in the forward again, though.
Yeah.
They had Jacob Wiedering.
There was no
Tom
Mackay,
DeConing.
no Mackay, no Hollands, no Newman, no Smith. Like I could name injuries for
One
you.
thing I didn't realise, Sam Walsh came off the bench this game to start.
That doesn't make a difference in AFL.
Yeah, realistically, it just means
It's
that...
not basketball, mate.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know. It's something to point out.
For Carlton, it was a disappointing game because obviously they held the lead for most of it. Once again, they're really struggling in second halves, specifically in last quarters as well. They just don't seem to have the not necessarily fitness, but decisions in crunch time when they are a bit more fatigued. They really struggle to move the ball. They don't have great kickers in the first place. So once players are fatigued and it's harder to make decisions, then obviously they're going to slow down a little bit, and that's really affecting them. But for the Bulldogs, they start 2-1 when they've had this many injuries. It's a perfect start for them.
It really is. I couldn't agree more. I think Western Bulldogs 2-1 is probably, I don't imagine them going 3-0. They had to beat Collingwood.
They almost did beat Collingwood anyway.
Yeah, I was going to say they've had a fantastic start.
Yeah.
Circumstance-wise, I mentioned it all throughout the beginning of this podcast existence, but more in reference to the start of the season. They are the biggest 50-50 team I can think of. Will that trend continue this year? If it doesn't, I believe that they make the 8.
Yeah, well,
I had them at 9 anyway, so they were 1 away. But with the way they're playing, plus the talent that's coming in, they could definitely make the 8.
yeah. Well, from what I've seen, Bontempelli won't be back until the week after gather round, which is round 6. Waitman's looking to potentially be out even past halfway through the year, and those are the two main ones. I think
Treloar's another.
Treloar is kind of close.
Yep.
I think he's getting there, but Saturday games started off absolute demolishing of Melbourne. I called this.
Yeah.
I've got my trust in Gold Coast this year. They are proving it so far.
They're proving it. I think that's the main thing.
Yeah.
We haven't seen proof of it
No.
outside of small glimpses being home field advantage. They were so
Yeah.
good last year, but they always ruin it while they're away. They're actually showing signs of being a finals side.
They've got
right?
two,
a proper finals side.
2 wins away from home already.
Yeah.
When they won like almost 0 last
I
year.
won, I think, 1 or 2 last
Yeah,
year.
literally. So really good start for them. Obviously against Melbourne, haven't done it against a good team.
Yeah, there's not
They
much
will-
really to talk about this
they-
game other
they-
than what we've already said before, though.
But they will get a good chance this week against Adelaide. Saints defeat Tigers. Saints showing some good football, and then Tigers obviously back to what we know.
Yeah, the way you would describe
simple.
describe this game too is the way it played out. I said the opposite, which is
Yeah.
not what happened, obviously. So yeah, St Kilda going more kind of exactly what you
Yeah.
think rather than Richmond.
Yeah, I would never have guessed us to win by 82. That's extreme for us.
But you
I'm
did
taking it.
what you needed to do.
Yeah, correct,
Realistically, you
correct.
take what you can get.
We put
and
them to the sword.
Yeah, you just had to do it if you want to see yourself be any chance, right? You have said times before that you see this team being 2-3 in the first 5 games. Well, they're 2-1 here, and they're still going down the path that you have expected. With the way Port's playing, I know that they're
It's
playing them at
plausible.
Adelaide.
We can talk about it.
There could be a chance. There could be a chance,
towards the
but
end.
I think you're on a good start.
Yeah.
At least on the way you expected it to be.
Now we had a double header on Saturday night. Hawks, Giants, and Lions. Cats really bad fixturing.
Yeah, but I think that's also, it was a little bit out of their control
Yeah.
considering the opening
Yeah.
round. This wasn't even supposed to happen, but
No.
you really hope that 2 clashes like this wouldn't mesh together. We'll go Hawks versus Giants first because this one was so much fun to watch. There was
yeah.
a very clear scoring end with the wind being as heavy as it was. Giants got off to a really, I think, 37-2 start and then flipped the script in the second quarter.
Yeah.
Hawthorn had it at one point. They had scored 37 and they had scored 2. So even at 39, in the exact same way, it's just Hawthorn put a bit more on towards the end. But they both used the weather to their advantage in that first half. And then the second half, it did even out a little bit.
It did, but that's probably more so due to the advantage of Hawthorn in that third quarter, being able to get on top of having the wind against them. They lowered their eyes a bit more. They were able to get the ball more so shorter kicks rather than bombing it long, which using the wind can sometimes be very difficult because the ball moves a lot more. And I also found it very interesting. In the second quarter, Josh Weddle took a mark that was very clearly not a mark.
Yeah.
And I just want to say free kick Hawthorn is 100% back. Like it is 100% back.
Well, they're the football darling, as some will say.
Anytime Hawthorn are good, it's always free kick Hawthorn, which always propels them to be much better. But change the momentum of the game for sure. Kicking one helps, but when you get 2 in a row pretty quickly, one after the other, certainly boosts the team. Lloyd Milk, said it again.
How did you say it again?
I don't know. I tried to say it too quickly. Lloyd Meek. He was fantastic on the weekend. Absolutely torched Kieran Briggs, who I have been on record saying he was fantastic in the back half of 2023, but he just has not replicated that form or anywhere near it since. And a lot of teams have these really good ruckmen for like half a season. We saw it with Tristan Cherry in the back half of last year. We've seen it with Tim English for 1 year in the Bulldogs 2023. Yeah. We've seen it with Lloyd Milk last year. We saw it with Tom de Koning last year. They perform really, really well, and then they drop off. The really good ruckmen don't drop off. We're seeing that with TDK this year. We're seeing it with Cherry this year. We saw it with Marshall a couple of years ago as well. Briggs, I want to see it with Meek this year, but Briggs especially, he was fantastic. And then I really think that's a position of weakness for them at the moment because he's just not doing enough. I understand that Meek was destroyed last week by TDK, but he was really good this week, bounced back very well, and he provided a lot of centre dominance for the Hawks, especially in that second quarter.
Yeah. All I'll add is your tongue twister to get ready for this podcast needs to be Lloyd Meek. Because you said Lloyd Milk again without even recognising it.
Lloyd. No, I recognised it immediately.
We're just trying to ignore it now. Let's move on though. Lions defeating the Cats by a goal and a half. This one, exciting at the very least. I think obviously this would have been so much more exciting had it happened opening round.
Yeah.
This matchup is a very interesting one because I don't know how many questions it answers.
No.
But at the same time, it shows that the Lions are showing how to win, not how to dominate, but how to win, which is what the top teams, at least I think the smartest top teams will do. They won't try to overdo it and push too much confidence into each other every game. They'll also give each other opportunities to shine and to grow. That's not to say, though, that it wasn't because the Cats didn't try. I think the Cats put up a really, really good effort. There were definitely some shining lights here and there, but
still no Stewart or Smith yet as well.
That's it. Yeah, there's some injuries affecting the Cats that maybe impacted this outcome a little bit, but we'll move on. I think we're getting close to...
I think we're getting limited in terms of time, but also with the Lions-Cats game, it was so weird for such a close game to not have a lot of, like, pressure around it. There wasn't that tension that you normally see in close games. Like we saw last week, the Geelong St Kilda game, how close it was for a long period of time. For like the last 8 minutes or something, it was really tense. The crowd was getting... There wasn't that for this game, even though it was a very similar like scoreline. And I found that very interesting to watch. Like it just felt really weird, the atmosphere in that game.
I think the opposite of that, however, was Crows Roos.
Yeah,
this one... Insane turnout from the Adelaide fans. This was fantastic to watch.
Yeah, what was it, 46,000?
46.
Yeah,
for
crazy.
Adelaide versus North is insane.
Who would have thought?
Didn't happen exactly how I thought, but I was fairly confident the Crows were going to win this one. I think their forward line is just way, way too good for a back line that, look, is improving, but is not there yet to stop such a dominant forward line that they've got.
Back?
Logue was not back.
I would have loved to have seen Logue play in this backline because he's probably a 3-goal player.
Him and Archer. Realistically, Archer as a one-on-one could have been really interesting against
someone
some
like
of those
Dan
players.
Curtin.
Dan Curtin, yeah. I think Curtin had a fantastic game. A lot of those, like Mitch Hinge from the backline was fantastic. I think he'll fall under the radar a lot this year with how dominant that Adelaide forward line is. But on the other hand, Isaac Rankin, 30-plus disposals.
Jeez, very good.
He was all over the park. No goals, but like you could feel his impact, and
taking that
it's
midfield
great
spot
that
now.
I was going to say it's great that someone like him can find a fantastic role within a club that's doing well, knowing that his spot in the forward line could be picked out pretty easily if he falls under. Right? If he has a quiet game in the forward line, that could stop him from getting games in the forward line. So being moved into kind of, I don't know if it was a winger or an inside midfield.
He is now inside midfield.
Yeah, he absolutely owned it. He owned it. He did so well. And probably the only negative for Crows fans that game was Josh Rochelle.
Yeah, it's 4 to 6 weeks now.
Yeah.
But again, he's a replaceable player in terms of they now have the depth because they got in Peatling and Cumming are sort of playing that. Well, Peatling's more so the half-forward role. So probably Lockie Murphy comes in. Pretty simple fix.
Yeah, and it's a good place to be, Adelaide, right now. Very exciting place.
Big attraction at the moment.
Eagles defeated by Freo in a very meh game. Very meh derby. Usually you like to see like big things come from these derbies. They often have the chance to surprise. I know a lot of people, including yourself, were saying that West Coast could really give them a shot for their money. Oh, yes, the 9-minute mark. Thank you. But I think Eagles being beaten so thoroughly everywhere throughout the ground.
Yeah, it's just...
It's
hard to watch.
It's very tough. I think Eagles are going to have another rough year and not the greatest start from Harley. He had flashes, though. He had some great flashes.
I don't mind. Towards the end of the game when they had a couple injuries and stuff, they looked to move him off of halfback, which I find interesting. They moved George Hewitt from the sub because he was activated. Unfortunately, it was for Harry Edwards, and then Jeremy McGovern got injured straight after.
Yeah.
So not great timing. Yeah. But I think now that Hewitt showed a few signs, which is really good, and Harley Reid to be able to get him more involved in the game, halfback's not a bad position. While he is that more so Jordan De Goey role of a player, Christian Petrarca, where he's a half-forward midfielder, just getting him into the game a bit more where you do the Sheasel and Dacos sort of thing is not a bad option. I don't mind that for a couple of weeks in a row to just get him more involved because it's really hard as a pure midfielder to get into the game.
Yeah, absolutely. I think he finished off with 16 or 17 touches, something around that. But he had flashes and moments that he looked really good. But I think the biggest fear for Harley Reid at the moment that a lot of people are pointing out is just how quickly his temper just turns. Yeah. And so it's good to see that West Coast get behind him. I know in the situation... the Jason Horne-Francis situation at North Melbourne. I only bring it up because it's considerable. It's very similar to this one. You back your player. You want to back them and make sure that they show, or at least the fan base is showing that we'd love to have you here.
Yeah. Because it's key for him to stay. It's 100% key for him to stay.
We have talked about positives if you left, but yeah, would love to see him stay. All right, let's move on. We've gone through round 3, but now we're going to properly learn with this beautiful face.
I love the eye.
Oh
I
my
love
God.
the eye. It's so good.
I don't know the thinking behind this photo, but we'll probably mention that every week.
It's so good.
It's a strange
So
photo,
good.
but nonetheless, we are going through 8 things I've learned this week.
Yay.
One thing from every single game, and there are some things that could get some riled up. I'm not sure
Yeah.
how we'll go, but
Let's do this rapid fire as well. I want to do this rapid fire this week.
yeah, I'll start with
Let's do
Port
it rapid
Adelaide
fire.
versus Essendon. The one thing I've learned, I can't stand Port Adelaide. And that is as standard as it comes. Port Adelaide is such a tease of a team. I can't stand it. They should be playing so much better than they are, despite Connor Rosie. Sorry, not Connor Rosie. Zach
Zach
Butters
Butters,
being
yeah.
out. Right, they should be playing so much better than they did, and the fact that they keep finding ways to disappoint is infuriating. Just as a
wild.
neutral, and not even as someone who doesn't like Port as much as others will kind of stand them. I cannot stand how Port Adelaide plays sometimes. We'll move on. For Carlton versus the Dogs, I'll stay away
Yep.
from Carlton in this one. When the Dogs play up to standard, and I mentioned this before, Dogs are a top 8 side. I think
For sure.
with the way that they have played against the teams they have so far, the talent that they've brought in, Sam Davidson, shout out Sam Davidson, 31
fantastic.
possessions, Joel
Yeah.
Frazier, which
Again.
one of our Thanks Basil viewers mentioned last week,
Liam.
another fantastic
Yes.
game. And then add in the talent that is currently sitting out, I think that's a top
Could
8
be
side.
really promising for sure.
Especially after how many people already had kind of chucked
Ridden
him out.
off. Yep. Shout out Libba. Been fantastic as captain in the early parts of the season. Really carried this midfield. Him and Ed Richards have done so much
Very
already
good
this
from them
year.
too. Then in the Gold Coast Demons matchup, I've gone Gold Coast can finally make finals this year. I think it is a bit early to properly
Always,
put your
but,
foot down in
you know.
that one, but they're doing what they should do as
Correct.
a finals team and beating the teams that are hanging around the bottom by a good amount.
And they normally don't do this against the teams they should be. So
Yeah.
this is a good sign.
I don't use that same criticism for Brisbane, right? I said that Brisbane are playing and winning in a way that premiership contenders do, right? But Gold Coast can't really do that.
No.
Gold Coast have something to prove.
Correct.
So I think they're doing the right thing by smacking these
Yeah.
teams. For Richmond versus St Kilda, I've just written we reacted way too quickly to both of these sides. We obviously thought that maybe Richmond weren't as bad as we thought when they beat Carlton. They don't look that great in the next 2 games.
Yeah.
So there are certainly things to kind of look out
drubbings
for
and all.
in Richmond land. But at the same time, they kind of expected this. I think it's just really good for them to get their win. Hopefully not their sole win, but one of their wins.
That would be fucking insane if they got one win in round 1
And
and
then
then didn't win a
Well,
game for
North
the
nearly
rest of
did
the
it
year.
with the first 2 rounds and then didn't win
20
anything. So
Oh, yeah, true.
So it's happened before, but again, I'm just happy for Richmond that they got their win. And then St Kilda. On St Kilda's side, they're doing what they should do if they want to be in the top 8 consideration this year, beating the teams that they should be
Yep.
by a lot. Again, if you have something to prove, you beat them by a lot.
Yes, which we did.
Exactly. Obviously, Adelaide may be a bit preemptive with that reaction to their loss to Adelaide because Adelaide look like they're going to beat a lot of teams by that much this year.
Yep.
Then we go to Hawthorn GWS. Hawthorn, to me, are the only top 4 confirmed sides so far.
Based off of performance.
I think there's ways you could say that Brisbane, right, even though I have mentioned that they are winning the right way, I think there is still a way that they get a bit too casual, a bit
Yeah.
too hung on the premiership and fall out of the top 4. Same goes for teams like Collingwood. Collingwood obviously coming off a premiership not long ago,
Yeah.
but they've still got something to prove, so they may push it. We'll see how that goes. Lots of teams here and there. They've beaten GWS, so I can't confirm them top 4. Geelong have been beaten a couple of times. They were considered, at least personally,
After
for top
whacking
4.
West Coast, yeah.
But
Fremantle.
even then, I can't say that they're top 4 confirmed. Hawthorn have beaten enough talent and been consistent enough that I think they are the only team that I am comfortable putting in the
Yep.
top 4 right now.
Fair.
For the Geelong versus Brisbane game, the premiership hangover lingers, but it's not enough to stop them.
No, because they've got so much talent.
Exactly. I don't need to go too much into this one.
Yeah.
I've mentioned plenty of times already to start this podcast that they're winning the way they should be. So there's a bit of it from that premiership that they're like, cool, we want a premiership. I don't need to play as hard or whatever. Or, you know, the hunger to get to the top again isn't there as much as it will be when you're fighting for a premiership or your first premiership in a reign, whatever it may be. But they're winning, and that's what's important.
Correct. Craziest reaction ever to winning a premiership. Oh, I just won a premiership. Come on, man.
That's pretty good. I don't know. I'd be pretty cheery if I won a premiership.
I know you
Next
would.
up, North versus Adelaide. I've gone Adelaide forwards can break open any team.
Yeah.
Any team. This forward
Triple
line.
threat. Jesus, really firing.
In height and strength, you've got the Thilthorpe, Walker, and Fogarty. 3. But then you think of Keys, and then you think of Rankin, and now Curtin and Rochelle.
Yep.
So much that they've got to work with in that forward line. It is scary. And then for the final game, which was Freo and West Coast, I said neither teams are showing too many positive signs.
Yep.
I think while Freo won, right, there's a reason that people were shocked that this was 17 v 18 so early, especially being the Derby. Obviously, we can talk about West Coast and how their expectations aren't high, and it feels like they're still not hitting their expectations. But Freo, very much so in the same case, right? Not hitting their expectations, beating a team in a very uninspired manner.
Yep.
And I think that there's room for improvement in many different ways for both sides. And that's about it.
Yep.
I don't have any extras.
Very nice.
Or I guess the only thing I'll say is I hate big sports bet. I'll leave it at that. No, I'm going to leave it at that. I don't want to go any further into it, man. I'll get into tears on camera. I really don't like betting. I don't like betting.
But you'll continue to do it.
Shut up. Shut up, man.
Okay,
All right,
well,
let's move on.
Yeah.
We've got your favourite.
From one segment to another. Bammy Tribunal task.
Oh, I was so disappointed that last week we didn't get much, but this week I already knew from the minute I watched the Saints-Richmond game at the very least, there's going to be something this week.
I love that the AFL and the MRO are completely useless because it is now a content machine for us. I'm going to make him spill his drink.
Please, this is so good. I don't need to lose it.
So last week was very quiet, which is not going to happen every week, but you know, we're straight back into the thick of it. Straight back into it, and it is awesome. The AFL have gone from not giving a single suspension to anyone for pushing someone into a contest to now giving a 3-week suspension in probably one of the most dubious ones we saw all in the month and a half that we've had so far.
If anyone has been paying attention to Bemmy's Tribunal task, you'll know that you have been on them to make something happen about this. Otherwise, someone's going to get really hurt.
Yep.
And of course, it happened to your team's player. Of course. And they finally went around and actually kind of put some action in to something like this.
And it's the wrong action too.
It's a bit late as well.
Yep. So I have a special connection to Liam O'Connell, which I will not delve into, but I do. It's private reasons.
Bro doesn't know you.
Actually, he might, but you know,
Let's
we
not
can
act
move
like
that
he
past.
knows you. Come on, bro.
Okay, anyway. The first one that I want to talk about is the Mark Keane tripping offence. Obviously, the big one is the Ryan Mansell one. But Mark Keane, this is his 5th offence of tripping someone. How is he still getting fined? 5 offences, and he's getting fined from 10K down to 6.25.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
He went down?
Okay, so
Is it just due to
they get the
severity?
plea. No, so they get the plea. You get like the 10K regular.
Oh, okay.
And then
I
it
thought
comes
his
down
fourth
as
one.
part of
I
it.
thought you were saying his 4th fine was 10K,
No,
and
no,
his
no,
5th
no, no.
went down
No,
for
no,
some
no.
reason.
His 5th fine is 10K, and then they bring it down to the 6.25 for whatever reason. I don't get that, but you know. And if you do something 5 times and you're still not being punished for it, you should be sacked.
Well,
let alone.
The idea
I'm
is that
so
he
confused.
is being punished for it, but like, is he?
It's like
Easy.
It's like
If he does it again-
it's a 30th of his contract, right?
Yeah.
If that.
If he keeps doing it.
What do you mean if he keeps doing it? He does keep
I
doing
know,
it.
that's what I'm saying. If he keeps doing it,
I think they get
then
up to 10 offences.
he's clearly not. He's clearly not faced by the punishments.
Once you get past 3 offences, you should be suspended. They get up to 10 offences. So if he does this 5 more times, the AFL's not going to give a shit. They'll just be like, here's a 15K fine down to 10K. We don't care. Whatever. It's fine to us. I don't understand that. That's really confusing to me. You're basically just allowing your players to do this. We've had, what, is this the 6th time someone's pushed someone into a contest?
Yeah, probably.
It's okay. It's so confusing, but we'll move on to the Ryan Mansell suspension. He got 3 weeks for it. It was graded pretty harshly, I thought. It is, let's see here, Ryan Mansell, rough conduct, careless, which I think we can all agree it was. I don't like the careless versus intentional that they have, the argument for one of each. It is pretty stupid because when you push someone into a contest, is it really careless or is it intentional? Because you are pretty much intentionally pushing them into a contest.
Yeah.
So the defining of that is pretty stupid. They've graded it as severe impact. So obviously, because he got concussed, it was a pretty heavy collision.
I was going to say that's more outcome related, isn't it?
Correct, which the AFL love to do. They love to base it off the outcome.
Mm-hmm.
And then they've gone high contact, which it is. The problem is, none of that was related to what Reece Mansell did. So they're grading basically off of Reece Mansell causing what Tom Lynch did to Liam O'Connell. I like the fact that it's a suspension. I've been on record saying that. I don't like the fact that it's a 3-week suspension. I think that's too much. I think the fact that it's you can't really grade for 2 weeks anymore is a problem because this to me seems like a 2-week suspension.
Yeah.
And I'll go into why. He pushed Liam O'Connell and then Liam O'Connell was able to take 3 more steps afterwards into the contest, right? So it is not a football action from what Reece Mansell did, but it's not like Liam O'Connell took 1 step and then he got whacked. He still had the chance, theoretically, to be able to pull out. He probably couldn't have because it was so quick and, players coming at him as well. But theoretically, there was a chance he could have, which is why I don't understand how it's a 3-week suspension. The problem is he still did a non-football act which caused a concussion. That is where the 3-match suspension comes from because they have talked a lot about the action over the result. And that is a problem. I have always been, it should be about the action, not the result. Because if you look at it, the Jimby one, you caused the action, not the result of him breaking his jaw. Well, actually, that one they didn't do either. But you remove the action and you give Jimby 2 weeks, you don't get 6 more within 6 months. 6 weeks. That is the problem. We've had one almost every single week since that. The Mitch Owens one, he doesn't hurt his shoulder. The Brandon Starcevich one, well, that one's a bit more contested because it was probably more so in a contest and a football act. You can still probably argue for 1 week because Starcevich did get knocked out. I just don't understand how they can argue that this is 3 weeks. I think he probably gets off. I think there is every chance he gets off because they can show that he took 2 or 3 extra steps, made it into the contest on his own feet, and then Lynch was the one who then obviously knocked him out.
Yep.
So I think that the AFL are just making it so much harder for themselves in this situation, in every sense of the way.
Yeah. So in the sense of, right, you said that a 2-week suspension would be better.
Mm-hmm.
Would that be... So because from what it sounds like, there's not even a possibility that they can go 2 weeks, right? They always go 1 or 3.
Yep.
Why would a 2 work out? What is just less of a chance that it gets beaten in a challenge or...
So for me, the way I say 3 weeks is 3 weeks is the absolute maximum of someone pushing someone into the back. Where can't remember the Jimby one, but if you push someone directly into the contest and they are not able to make their way out of it and they get a severe enough impact where it is a concussion or it is a broken shoulder, whatever, that is then a 3-week suspension. In this instance, there was some time allocated for O'Connell to potentially be able to get out of it, and it wasn't necessarily a direct impact of him running into the player. It was a fallen arm that collected O'Connell. A 1 week would be something completely different towards that. I haven't really thought about 1 week. I've also thought about the 2 and 3 weeks. I just don't understand how they can argue this is 3 weeks when there was time. And this is coming from a Saints fan. There was time for him to theoretically move out of the way.
This should have been stamped out in pre-season.
Yep.
There was so many chances to... The Ruben Gimby one specifically.
Mm-hmm.
That was given nothing.
Nothing.
That was not even given... it was given a look, but maybe not by the MRO and the tribunal. It was given a look by us. We gave it a look.
It was given a review by the MRO. He gave it nothing, so it can't go to the tribunal.
Okay. I think what this is a failure from the MRO's perspective because now it's clearly become a problem.
Yep.
It's clearly become a problem, and the fact that it was let go so early, the hesitancy, right? And it feels like that's been this reign from the current administration in the AFL has been hesitancy to do anything. You mentioned that Laura Kane and Andrew Dillon, what have they put their name to?
Yep.
I don't know.
They've
and
now just
and now it feels like the thing that they put their name to is hesitancy.
Correct.
You don't know.
Yeah.
You don't know what they're going to do.
it's a huge problem
Yeah.
because if you as a league are not confident in A, the decisions you are making, B, the consistency that you're making the decisions with, in terms of within 6 weeks you have gone from one instance nothing to another instance 3 weeks, that's just as big as a problem as not making a decision at all.
Yeah.
And so we're going from a really bad decision to a decision that they didn't even bother reviewing in the Lawson Humphreys hit on Callum Archie. This is something that the AFL and the MRO did not even take a look at from what I know, but it's something I want to talk about because when watching the game, I thought this was extremely dangerous. So if we can switch to the slide.
We've got the clip this time.
I believe we have
like
the clip
to think.
somehow.
If not, we'll hear producer. No, we've got the clip.
Yep, we've got the clip. So as you see there, Callum Archie goes for the ball and he's getting man-marked by, it looks to be Guthrie.
Yeah, that's Guthrie.
Yeah, Lawson Humphreys come through. On the next slide where we see a replay of it, in the other one there's two. So really dangerous act. This one. Problem is, on this, Lawson Humphreys is not looking at the ball. So
Yeah.
that is not a football act. If you're looking at the ball and you make contact with the player, I understand it. It was paid a free kick, which was 100% correct. But I don't understand how if a player's not looking at the ball, makes dangerous contact with a player, and he almost concusses him by making him fall on the ground and hit his head, how that is not looked at. It is not a football act.
You
It
want
is,
to know why I think?
please.
Because he didn't come out hurt. Neither of them came
Yeah,
out hurt.
yeah. So again, result over the action. That is an extremely dangerous action. We have had so many instances
If he was
of
legitimately
tunneling.
concussed, hurt, something like that,
Yeah.
100% would have been looked at.
Because we've had, how many times over the last 2 years have you seen something where someone's tunneled someone and they've looked at it because the player got injured?
Yep.
So I think that's a really good point. I am absolutely furious that they have not looked at this. This is one that you just stamp out of the game. If you go back to the first slide, if we can, it just looks like a really dangerous act. You just see a player get folded in half, basically.
Yeah.
And then
And
on the
without
second
him even
slide,
being looked, I have just noticed as well. Lawson does a cheeky attempt at a trip. Look,
yeah. We talked about Mark Keane doing a trip. How's that not been looked at as well? In the
nothing
exact
about
same
that being looked
instance.
is very strange.
Like, that is extremely dangerous as well, trying to trip someone.
Yeah.
So, once again, Jay Epstein is correct. Geelong gets shielded by the umpires.
It always comes back to him.
It always comes back to him. But this one infuriates me because how, as a viewer, am I able to catch this, show that with the replays they provided, it looks like he's not watching the football and hits someone in a very dangerous situation. And the AFL and MRO do not look at it. That's where I'm confused at.
Yep.
Like, look at the quality on this that I'm looking at. That's what, like, look at this.
This is iPhone
Okay,
quality.
look
This
at
is
look at
fantastic.
Humphrey's eyes. He's not watching the ball
Yeah.
and he goes straight to the man.
Yeah.
That is so dangerous. That is so dangerous. So AFL do better.
Anything else that you'd like to bring up?
There's one more. Ben Hobbs. This is one you brought up and you want to talk about.
Yes, this is
Ben Hobbs.
I think this Ben Hobbs one is one that is in good taste but really dumb,
Mm-hmm.
right? I think the idea of punishing those for staging is a good thing, especially if it's obvious, right?
Yeah.
Because players aren't, as much as they love to think they can get away with it, they're not actors.
can't.
They
Stephen
can't act
May
that out.
last year.
I was going to say Stephen May is the one
Yeah.
that comes to mind.
Yep.
That one, that should have been punished, right? And thankfully, I don't know how often it happens. I think there'll still always be I think now I think about it,
There's-
Mark Keane fell to the floor once he got a little push from, I think it was Jacob Constantine, something like that. I saw that,
that's
I'm like,
bad.
oh my God, that was a big one. But
Riley O'Brien after Tristan Cherry.
I don't know if that was a flop. I think that was just him not being able to control his limbs. But at the same time, the idea is good, but just the worst place to put
Yeah.
it in, because you can clearly see Ben Hobbs. If you've seen the clip, Ben Hobbs clearly gets clipped by Connor Rosie's knee outside the play.
And he's also in a sling tackle.
Yeah, and he's in a tackle. It's not like he can stop himself. So
Yeah.
the fact that he's been told to pay up for staging is insane work.
crazy.
Insane work.
Yeah.
But that's a bit more of an obvious one that I think we'll kind of leave in the air, because I don't think there needs to be much said about that.
No.
Leave that in the dust. We'll come to it once we know of a proper staging.
Yeah.
All right, this one is a personal one that I wanted to go through because I have loved the Dan Does Footy, the Daniel Gorringe start to the season. He
Yes.
alongside Carlton the Blues.
Is his name Daniel
Gorringe?
Gorringe?
Yes.
No, it's not.
Is it not? What?
It's Richmond,
Oh.
Hawthorn, Bulldogs, Gorringe.
Oh man, it's like almost a little, I don't know, glazing of him because of how good his content and stuff has been. But
Knock, knock.
he's been killing it.
Knock, knock.
No,
Knock, knock. Do it.
you're gonna say 0-3, aren't you? Yeah. I'm not falling for your cringe. Counts. I don't know how to say it. Either way, Dan Does Footy has been off to a ripper start content-wise this year, and I wanted to go through it because I think it's just fantastic to kind of look how his road has fallen similar. I love how good his road has compared to Carlton. He's gone through, I mean, it shows how dedicated a fan base can be, right? You go through the ups and downs with them, and I think it's a very nice thing to kind of look at. So I've written here
Hilarious.
almost a story as to how Dan's season has gone alongside the Carlton Football Club. So in round one, we all know Carlton had lost to Richmond on the Thursday night in an upset no one in their right mind had seen coming. I think we can all admit that. He had mentioned things like Richmond are a bunch of 14-year-olds. That's one of my favourite quotes. That's hilarious.
Yeah,
Don't! And that if his team had lost to them, he would change his name to Richmond Gorringe.
Yes.
Lo and behold, they lost, and social media had its way with him, as social media does, as we'll find out with you.
Oh, bang.
But in round two, they kind of expected to come off as losers, right? Up against the Hawthorn team that was very in shape, off a great start. This team was expected to lose. However, they didn't go down by as much as we thought. Only 20 points. That's a pretty respectable way to, I guess, lose a contest against a team that's expected top four. However, this may have re-inspired the Carlton faithful that maybe this was just a poor performance against Richmond. It's a one-off. They can play their best footy still. And that their chance to re-establish their finals form from years past in their next week against the Bulldogs was a possibility. However, this close loss, as we'd find out, would just be a red herring for what was about to come of them. In round number 3, as you can see, round number 3 has produced this fantastic photo. Oh, my God. He is now notoriously recognised for his opening night meltdown. However, he was one of those Blues fans who had regained hope. He was fairly certain, as you can see through this photo here, that his team would be able to pick off the short-handed Bulldogs. So much so that he mentioned he would dye his hair blue, like the Bulldogs defender Rory Lobb.
Yeah.
And as you can see, and as we mentioned before, the Dogs won by 8 points.
Yeah.
In a similar fashion, around 1 as well, holding the lead for a lot of the game and losing it right at the end.
Yeah.
Similar meltdown scene from week 1 saw Dan have to update the world that he can no longer be seen in public because this is a tough look, saying, I look like some middle-aged woman who's gone through some stuff.
Yes. Wow.
So we are 3 rounds in. And he has already had this awful of a run. I just wanted to point it out because as much as it seems awful, he's having a fantastic run through social media.
Oh, yeah,
I'd imagine his growth is doing really well. I'm constantly shown his stuff through Carlton's unsuccess, realistically. But I wanted to give that a quick kind of run through because I think it's just a fantastic story. I think it's so funny.
Okay, I've got a proposal.
Yeah.
Round 21, St Kilda v North.
Oh, God.
Blue hair for me, red hair for you.
Oh, my God.
Depending on who wins.
Oh, maybe we'd look. Coloured hair, I feel like is too similar to this. People will just recognise it and maybe think that we're just copying him. I think we can find something better. Okay. So I am still kind of like I will think about it. We'll think about something we can do. But
get a tattoo.
Oh no!
That's worse than hair. That's so much worse than hair.
Oh,
That's so much worse than hair.
Oh.
What? Producer.
It should just be if my team loses, North Premiers 2025, and then if you lose, Saints Premiers 2025.
No, God no.
All right, we'll find something else.
It'll be like you have to wear a jersey or something every day for a week.
That's boring. That's boring as. Who cares?
Oh well.
We'll find something though. That's a good idea. Now we're going into something a bit more serious though. We're all through the fun and games of. I love looking at that photo. All right, here we go. So
Yes.
this is your moment to.
This is my time to shine.
Yeah, here we go. Yes, I want to see him cry.
I'm very sorry, Essendon. I'm very sorry. In last week's episode, we were talking about the Essendon and Melbourne rebuild/retooling over the last couple years. Now, unfortunately, I made a mistake, and I said that Melbourne had traded for Essendon's future first-round pick, when in fact, it was the other way around. Well, for you Essendon fans, this one's to you. It only furthers my point. Because not only do you now have 2 first-round picks this year, you control Melbourne's and your own. So if you want to, be bad and become good in the future, think long-term, how about you lose some games, play your young players, take the pain and suffering of this year, and get picks 2 and 5 for this year's draft? Does that not sound a lot better than anything else you could have possibly had this year? Because we all know you would not win a final even if you made them. So, to you Essendon fans, I understand that I made a wrong decision last week and got it wrong in terms of the trade you made last year. However, guess who came out in the end on top? Because as always, you guys do not think long term.
You sound hurt.
I sound hurt.
Yeah.
The Essendon fans sounded a lot more hurt than I did.
We're going to have a look at some of those Essendon fans in a sec. But
So, yes, the next section is going to be looking at some fans.
No. Don't we want to have a look at this deep dive, right? Next up, we've got the deep
correct.
dive on Essendon.
So the next
After this is having a look at their reactions to your
Yes.
little miscommunication.
Yes. So I understand that I made a mistake. So what I've done is I've done a lot of research and I've gone through the 5 draft periods and 5 trade periods that they have had over the last 5 years. We will start off with 2019, where
can I quickly
yes.
point out
Go ahead.
the reason we have gone, and I've mentioned this to you, I don't know if this is something you've agreed with and that's why you've gone this time length, but I think it's really, really vital to understand that you cannot judge a team too early. Hence why I had mentioned put more emphasis on the 2019, 2020, 2021 drafts and off-season, because now we're far enough from those times to kind of get a look at how they've gone. What's their direction since then? How are those players turned out? And I think it shows a lot with this research that you've done, just exactly what we think of Essendon.
Yep. So we'll start off with the 2019 trade period, where they traded for Andrew Phillips, pick 61 and pick 72, and gave up pick 57 and 70 for those, as well as trading for pick 64 and Tom Cutler, and giving up a future 3rd-round pick in the 2020 draft, as well as pick 72. Now, Andrew Phillips had an okay time at Essendon.
He was all
He was
right.
just like a backup
I was going to
ruckman.
say nothing too crazy.
Was able to provide some support for Sam Draper during that period when he first started, and also someone else that I can't remember the name of. But then Tom Cutler didn't really do anything for Essendon, and then the picks all here wasn't really anything. They got Cameron Tahini, or Tani, whatever his name is. That was the pick they gave up, as well as Ben Johnson in the 2019 draft. And then the pick that they gave up through the Tom Cutler trade in the 2020 3rd-round pick was Tyler Brockman. So, okay player, got traded from Hawthorn anyway.
Doing okay.
And
West
just sort of
Coast,
started
bit of
to
West Coast,
get his spot in the team, but hasn't done anything so far. And then in the 2019 draft, in the mid-season, they selected Will Snelling, who had a couple okay years, but nothing too insane. They could have potentially taken Marlon Pickett or John Noble. Those were 2 players selected after him. And so, not too much wrong there, but John Noble was clearly a better player.
With what Essendon had in their draft hand, they could have done better.
Yeah.
But it's not a terrible outcome.
That's the mid-season draft. And then in the actual AFL draft, they selected Harrison Jones with pick number 30. 2 players after them that they could have picked directly after was Charlie Comben with pick 31, which we know they need key defenders, as well as Trent Rivers at pick 32, who is that halfback flanker / medium tall, who can really play all sorts of roles. And then pick 37 was Keaton Coleman. All players who are specifically better than Harrison Jones and a player that Essendon could have used. Pick 38, directly after Keaton Coleman, they selected Nick Bryan. This is a really difficult pick. considering there was a developmental ruck and they're always potential good spots.
Yep.
But the pick directly after him is a really troublesome one. It was Chad Warner.
Yeah.
And God only knows they would love a Chad Warner right now.
They really would. I mean, that's a really, really tough spot to be in between. Your pick being between Kitty Coleman
Yep.
and Chad Warner.
Really
That's tough.
difficult. Yep.
That's really tough. And I
Yeah.
said that the 2019 offseason wasn't really that bad, but it could have been great. It
Yeah.
could have been great.
And this is nothing against the players they did pick because they're all still decent players. There's just so better options, definitively better options. There was also potentially Jake Riccardi at pick 51, who was a decent option for GWS over the last couple of years. They selected Ned Cahill with pick 56. They could have potentially had Michael Frederick or Riley Garcia with pick 61 or 62. Also some really good pressure small forwards that we know they've lacked.
Yeah.
So a couple misses there. They selected Lockie Johnson with a pick after. Again, nothing really after him.
Yep.
Then we head to the 2020 off-season where they traded in Jai Caldwell, pick 44 and pick 74 for pick 29 and a round 2 pick in 2021.
Yep.
That ended up being Fraser Rosman and James Willis. Didn't really result to anything for the team they gave that to.
Yep.
Jai Caldwell started off slow, but really turned it on in
He's
the last
picked it
couple of
up.
years. He's been a fantastic pickup for them. And then they also traded for Nick Hind, as well as pick 77, pick 67 and 74. Nothing came of those picks. They weren't even used. And then they also got Peter Wright for a future fourth round pick. And nothing came of that because, again, it wasn't used. So there's nothing wrong with that off-season.
Honestly, not a bad offseason.
2021, Peter Wright was fantastic.
Yeah.
So really good value for that trade. And then Jai Caldwell since has been really, really good for them. So absolutely nothing wrong with that. But then we head to the 2020 draft.
This is the one.
And this is the one.
This is the one that I look at and go, this is
Yeah.
not good.
So they had Nick Cox with pick 8, Archie Perkins with pick 9, and Zach Reed with pick 10. Now, there wasn't anything absolutely insane after them, aside from Tom Powell at pick 13, Oliver Henry with pick 17, Max Holmes with pick 20, and Shannon Neal with pick 33. Obviously, Max Holmes would fit awesomely into this team, provide some fantastic speed and gut running that they don't necessarily have, and he'd work really well with Zach Merritt. And then Shannon Neal, we know they needed a key forward, would have been a fantastically good developmental piece to have alongside Peter Wright, who would have helped him. But then they had Josh Ira at pick 39. This was one they got from a trade. The only one they could have potentially picked after him was Bo McCreary. Again, a really good small forward who's providing a lot of pressure and pace for Collingwood at the moment. 100% could have used him, who was at pick 44. And then Cody Brand, pick 53, nothing after him. So, really difficult year this year on the draft. You could have had a lot of better options. You could have gone with Tom Powell, Max Holmes, and Shannon Neal instead of Perkins, Reed, and Nick Cox. Very different.
That's the thing, because they're 3 picks in a row.
Yep.
Right? They had that many. And obviously, when you have that kind of draft order, when you've got one after the other, you go for positions, right? You go for plugging holes almost. But I don't know what holes they plugged. What with Zach Reed?
Zach Reed still hold out on, because if he does get a good run at it, he still has the potential to be a really solid key defender. And I don't mind that pick in all honesty. The Archie Perkins one, he just hasn't been developed. He really hasn't grown that much since his first or second year.
Yep.
Because as a small forward midfielder, you need to be impactful. He's just not providing that impact. And then Nick Cox, he's just really struggled at anything. Hasn't locked down a position, and he hasn't performed in anything.
He just hasn't looked at home.
Yeah.
It feels like Essendon have not been able to find something to do with him.
Yeah. So, again, they could have had a midfield theoretically. I'm not saying they would have all developed out like they did, but they could have had a midfield of Merritt, Caldwell, Tom Powell, Max Holmes,
Warner. If we think back to last year.
Potentially Chad Warner. And then they could have had a half-back flank of Charlie Comben, Trent Rivers, or Keaton Coleman, one of those three.
Yeah.
Right? And then you also go, okay, now we have Shannon Neal to develop alongside theoretically what could have been Nate Caddy and Isaac Kako. Really good small forwards alongside 2 key tours.
But obviously this is looking into a future that doesn't exist. So who knows
correct.
how they would have gone after that. But yeah.
But now, moving ahead to the 2021 trade period, They didn't do a single trade, at least player-wise. I don't think that the place I had looked at had trades with picks. But again, no major trades. And that
Which
is
is strange
huge
because
problem.
this is after finals, is it not?
So 2021, they just made finals. They finished 7th and played the Bulldogs in an elimination final. Did they finish? No, they finished 8th. I think they finished 8th that year.
Where were the Dogs? This was the year that...
Yeah,
so
they played Bulldogs. It was
off-
2021, so they would have been 5th, 5th, 8th,
Yeah.
I believe. They had a really good year from Peter Wright. They had a really good year from Zach Merritt. Jake String was very good. This was the year that they basically had everyone at their best. Problem is, they got too sucked into being good, but not great. And that is the issue. Plenty of teams have done that over recent years. You had St Kilda do it at the end of 2020, where they drafted not a lot and they went for more experienced players. It didn't work out for them in the future. You've had Fremantle do something along the lines. You had Melbourne do something along those lines. All the teams that moved up in the draft afterwards, moved up on the ladder, all went for younger players to boost the players that are then growing with them, right? They didn't do anything. So they didn't even go for older players. And that's a huge issue. And then if we look at the 2021 draft, so after taking 3 top 10 selections in a row, they got Sam Durham in the mid-season. Fantastic
Great pick.
He's been awesome for them. They took Ben Hobbs with pick 13.
He's still in the team, doing all right. Maybe a bit too early to judge. I'm not sure.
Still early to judge, but at the same time, he's had 3 or 4 years to be able to break out, and he just hasn't shown the glimpses.
Yep.
That's the thing. You had some players, like Charters has shown some things at least this year. Ben Hobbs hasn't really shown it, and they could have selected Darcy Wilmot, pick 16, Jacob Van Rooyen, pick 19. We know they needed a key forward too. Kai Lohman at pick 20. We know they needed small forwards. Connor McDonald at pick 26. Then they could have had Mitch Owens at pick 33. Now I know that was a NGA bid. However, at pick 13, he was seen as pushing top 20 if they went for him, because that was the first year they went to push back. Top 20 selections, you couldn't match a bid on them. So they could have selected him with pick 13. He looks like a top 5 player from that draft, arguably, at the moment. They could have had Paul Curtis at pick 35 and Jake Saligo with pick 36. All players they could use right now. Then they also selected Alistair Lord at pick 46. Nothing really of note between that and their next pick, which is Garrett McDonough at pick 50. I don't think anyone's heard of that name since that draft. And they could have theoretically selected Jace Burgoyne at pick 60 or Taj Woden with the last pick in that draft.
Yeah.
Both those players are looking really solid at the moment.
Yeah.
So again, not hitting when you need to, and then not selecting a theoretical player that would boost your team in a couple of years if you wanted to then develop their talent to an extreme level.
I would give more criticism at their inaction during the off-season.
Yeah, 100%.
Rather than their draft picks here.
That year for sure.
While you can definitely say certain things about certain draft picks and how certain players are looking better than others right now, their inaction after a final season, making finals, right?
Mm-hmm.
They either realise... I mean, this was their first time in a good while, I think, that they had made finals. Was 2020?
Yeah.
Did they go there 2020?
2020 they did not.
So 2021 was their first time they'd made finals in a while.
2019 they made finals.
Oh, okay, it was 2019.
Yeah.
But they had gotten back to finals.
Mm-hmm.
This is the moment where they have to understand what they've got right now. They are in mediocrity.
Yeah.
They are in mediocrity. They either look at what they've got and say, hi, we see that you're all improving. Let's work with what you've got and move it on. Or they'll see maybe they need another push. I don't see a world where that first option is even possible.
No.
You're going off of a Jake Stringer, a Zach Merritt, right? They're playing at the best of their ability, like you said. Mm-hmm. And they decided that they're only going to get better.
Yeah.
Better to the point where they can make... I'd assume they would be hoping to reach prelims at least in 2022.
Well, that would be the rise, theoretically, that most teams would hope for.
Yeah.
Go from just making finals to pushing for a grand final spot. Unfortunately, they got it completely wrong. And now moving to the 2022 trade period. I'll go through these a bit quicker. Traded for Will Setterfield and pick 68 and traded away a future 4th round pick. Hasn't really done anything. Traded for Sam Wiedemann, pick 54 and pick 72 and gave up pick 37, which ended up being Caleb Mitchell. Nothing really there. 2022 draft, they picked up D'Ambrosio mid-season and we've seen how good he has. They got rid of him for basically
I was
nothing.
going to say that's a big one that you
Yeah.
can judge right now because they got rid of that talent.
Yep, for literally nothing. They picked Elijah Sardis with pick 5, which
You said that he's shown signs now,
showed
but at the
signs,
same time,
finally.
you look at some of the ones. That was a pretty good draft.
I'll say some of the names now. Bailey Humphrey, pick 6, showed some really good signs as a mid forward.
Yep.
Cam McKenzie really breaking out now through Hawthorn's midfield without James Warple. Mateus Philippou, we've seen signs, some really good signs.
He showed more signs than Sardis.
Yep. Jasper Fletcher, really good for Brisbane.
Yep.
Josh Weddle, really good versatile play for Hawthorn. They selected Lewis Hayes with pick 25. There wasn't really anything after that. And then they selected Alwyn Davey and Jaden Davey with 45 and 54. The only one of note could have been Joe Richards, although he's still sort of on the outer.
Working his way in.
Yeah, working his way in. Then 2023 trade period. They traded in Xavier Dersma and traded away Brandon Zerk-Thatcher, pick 73, and 2 4th-round picks in 2024, which were Carlton and their own. They turned into Cody Anderson and Reece Unwin. Nothing of note with those two. And then 2023 draft was Jaden Hunter in the midseason, not been anything. Nate Caddy with pick 10, which looks really, really promising. He's been really good as a young key forward. They selected Luamon Lual with pick 39. Could have had Joel Frazier with pick 45 or Hugo Garcia with pick 50. Both have shown more promise than he has. And then they picked Archie Roberts with 54. Been pretty good, but they also could have had Lawson Humphreys with pick 63. So a couple misses there, but nothing too insane.
You think, though, with some of the picks, right, so they've finally seemed to find something with Caddy in that forward line.
Yeah.
But on the same end, right, you think back, they could have had Shannon Neal, they could have added something on top. You almost have to think, right, is it worth, and that's why I don't want to judge these drafts too quickly, even though it looks positive for Essendon to start, right? You don't want to judge them too early because if they had taken Shannon Neal then and he did his thing that he's kind of doing at Geelong, he's not an outbreaking forward, but he's a very helpful one at a time of need for Geelong. Would they have taken Nate Caddy if they had Shannon Neal?
I think they would have because I think they work pretty well together. I don't think Caddy is that sort of huge-bodied in terms of height-wise. He's still pretty big size-wise. But he probably plays well off of Shannon Neal because he's able to get around the ground a bit better and he's a bit more of an aerial threat. Shannon Neal's hey, put it in a pack and I'll be able to take a mark. Nate Caddy likes to fly. So I think they'd be able to pair pretty well, and then you could have Isaac Kaka on the ground as well. But problem is, after a second year in a row where they missed out on finals by having really poor second half of the season in 2023 and 2024, they hit the draft for the future, obviously with that pick that I talked about. What they didn't do is they didn't trade for anyone. We've seen in previous years, they went for Jai Caldwell and Jackson Haitley. Jackson Haitley ended up going to Adelaide, but we saw those players who were on the outer at GWS because they have so much talent that couldn't get into the team. They went for it. It worked. They didn't do that again this year. They didn't make a single trade for a player, which is a huge problem when you know your list is not good enough. So they have said they're not really in a rebuild. Whilst their list is still young because they took so many players in this year's draft, there wasn't necessarily that, hey, we want to go for these young players. We just want to hit the draft. There's that big list imbalance because there's a lot of really young players, but there's so few players in their prime really hitting their straps at the moment, where it's kind of similar to St Kilda, but if St Kilda have done it over 3 or 4 drafts, Essendon just did it off of basically 1, and that's a problem.
Yeah. So, with all that being said, my main point here, and I think the reason why I really wanted to go into Essendon, obviously to make up for our little mistake last week.
My little mistake last week.
I'd try to bring the heat off you a little bit. What is the ultimate plan for Essendon? Is there a plan for Essendon? I mean, internally, they probably are saying that they've got a plan, but it doesn't feel like they're following anything. It feels like they're kind of riding the momentum, hoping that one of them brings in a finals win, maybe.
The plan should be, hey, let's embrace the rebuild. Let's hit the draft. We've now got 2 first-round picks. You couldn't ask for a better start with 2 teams that could potentially suffer this season with some really poor losses. We've already seen that in the first 3 rounds. How do you not think that this list, yes, they beat Port Adelaide, but again, Port Adelaide have not been world beaters so far this year. It was a good performance against Hawthorn, but they still weren't able to get the win. Embrace the fact that your list is young and there are some really good young pieces on there. There's nothing wrong with that. Look at what North Melbourne have done. No offence, but look what North Melbourne have done. They said, 2020, we're cutting everyone. You dropped, 11 players out of your team? And you just went, hey, we know this is going to be bad, but we need to embrace it. Look what Richmond have done. They cut everyone, went really hard at this year's draft, but they're embracing the rebuild. Essendon have not yet embraced it, but that is the step forward. Do it now. You've got 2 first-round picks. Try get a third. Maybe not 7, 8, or 8, 9, 10 like it was in 2020.
Yeah.
But try hit a couple picks really early and get game breakers. Get a new Jake Stringer who's not going to be doing shit in the offseason that's going to affect his play. Try get a new key defender that theoretically could break into the team. Go for something like that. Try hit a couple young players that are on the outer at other clubs as well in this offseason. Don't go for these experienced players that are on the outer at other clubs.
Yeah.
Go for youth because that is the way forward.
Yeah. Beautifully said. I think after the way we kind of glossed over it last week,
yes,
we've put our all into this. I say that I helped a little bit, but you've done obviously most of this, so well done to you making up for it. I think while I agree with most of what you've said, I think for these guys, I don't know how clear that plan of full rebounding really is, because I mentioned it in that episode, I think it was last week, where I said the drought, and people will say that it doesn't matter, right? And I do admit that it's a little silly to think about a year-long drought of no finals wins, right? It's just something that's kind of become a meme over time. But it is something that fans will think about.
100%.
It's something they're going to think about. They're going to be like, oh, we can't rebuild.
Every problem is everything they'll go back to is, hey, we need to break the streak. We need to break the streak.
Like,
and that's a problem because you're thinking too short term.
Do you think, yeah, exactly. You have to tell Essendon fans, do you think with this team you will win a finals game?
Nope. That's not the question you got to ask. You got to ask is, do you think this team will be able to win a flag?
Yeah.
Because the question they've been asking is, do you think this team will win a final?
Yeah.
And look what it's gone on for 20 years.
Yeah, that's exactly right. No, you're very right there. But I think with that long explanation, we have now earned the opportunity to have a look at some TikTok comments.
Oh, I thought you were going to say to bash Essendon.
No,
again.
we're bashing you. So I'm really excited for this. I'm really excited for this because I don't think I copped too much of it. I think I just got the usual, what a Northy Nuffy or whatever it is.
Zero access, zero clue.
That's it. Well, you've seen some of them, but of course, follow us over on Instagram and TikTok. TikTok's been doing all right as of late. Been great to see that. Instagram's been picking up as well. A few things here and there. And, of course, subscribe to us on YouTube. It's always very much appreciated when you can go and show us some love on the platform we love the most. I like this one. Let's start a podcast, bro. Yeah, we do kind of give off that vibe. I think when I was first explaining this to my viewer base, I'm like, 2 white dudes going in talking about what they think is most important.
Okay. Why the race? Why the race?
Well, it's a bit of a stereotype.
There's a difference between 2 absolute random nuffies starting a podcast and 2 people who study this for a living.
Yeah.
It's very, very different.
They wouldn't know that. It's TikTok.
No,
Who
correct.
cares? They don't care. It's for people with the short time span and all that.
Drive up the attention, attention, please. Whatever it's called.
Yeah, we're really not helping ourselves.
No.
Took up the whole screen. He did take up a bit
It's
of
not
the
even
screen.
the worst one. That's the thing. It's almost as if you zoom in or something. It's almost as if you zoom in.
Oh, sorry.
I want to make it clear that that's not edited. Filled up to be the full screen.
You're not making this any better, producer Ethan. You're not making this any better.
I'm just waiting for. I'm surely there's one that I've missed that's about me. Surely they like me. Oh, oh no! It's more about you.
Keep driving up the engagement, please. That's all I ask for. If you want to make fat comments, make fat comments. I can
To
take
be fair,
it.
I really liked this one. I thought this one was smart.
Keep
Kind of.
making fat comments, fat hate comments. I dare you. I dare you.
Oh my god. Yeah, this Jamara one got a few absolute pearlers.
It's more Jamara.
This one was lazy. I think he disappeared because the host ate him. The producer's cracking it up over there. He loves this one.
This is the funniest one.
You really like
This
this
is
one?
really good.
Because
No,
the
I couldn't-
host ate him.
every time I see it, I laugh.
The
This
producer's
one's really
dying
good.
back there.
Hey, JCNXOCCC. I don't know why you need to have 4 C's in your name. Clearly think about those CCs as well, mate. But
Is that a food reference? You're not beating the fat allegations, bro. You're never beating the...
can't stop.
Oh, I'm dying. Oh, I love this so much. Oh, we need to do this more often. We need to just stir some absolute like, just stir some fights up. Something like this is awesome. All right, next one. Is there
Carrying
more?
the segment.
Could be the worst segment I've ever seen on SFL.
SNL? What are we doing
I
here?
hope he means AFL.
I hope he means SNL. I'm a comedian.
I don't know how. I've seen worse. Volcano.
Yeah. Sam McClure. Oh,
Oh, it's
Gary
Gary
Lyon. Oh, crazy. Gary Lyon's not even
That's
talking
the
about the
real
right
Gary
sports.
Lyon. That's the real Gary
It's
Lyon.
a real
I
Gary
can't
Lyon.
believe it. I
Hey,
can't
we're not
believe it.
Sam McClure, okay? It's perfectly fine.
Here we go. This is refereeing Essendon. So
Yep.
hopefully he watches the video or the podcast or whatever. He probably won't, but
So what he says, lads, we're already in the rebuild. It's not 1 or 2 years away. We have a younger list than Richmond and a ton of picks to come. You got one extra pick that's not yours, which is the Melbourne pick. That's not a ton of picks at all. It's a good pick, but it's not a ton of picks. And no, you are not in the rebuild. You have officially come out and said, no, we are not in a rebuild.
that and the way they're doing it, you'd more describe as a retooling.
Yes, at the moment, it's
At
a
the
retooling.
moment, yes.
So, no, you are incorrect. 3032 FC.
Sorry, mate.
Sorry.
Get schooled.
Is that everything? No, we got one more.
Yes.
Yeah, fair
I'm
enough.
finally involved.
Fair enough.
The irony coming from a Saints and North supporter, that is completely fair. I hate that I don't have anything to say back to that.
I was going to say, hey, at least we've won a game, but turns out they won a game too. So, oh well.
Oh, well.
Wait,
who cares?
5 days ago, they had. Was that when they'd won a game?
Oh,
I
here
can't
you
remember.
go. This is the one you mentioned to
Yep.
start. The
Zero access, zero clue.
Be careful, mate. We will use it. We will use it. We'll
Hey,
do it.
When we're talking about our new segments where we have our sources, we'll call it Zero Access, Zero Clue. Just for you.
Well done, though. Thank you, Grouse's dad.
Crazy name.
Here we go. All
Moving
right, we're
on.
done with that. No,
Yes,
lovely.
finally.
That was good fun, though.
Thank God.
Oh, my God. I want to do that more often. That was fantastic. Beautiful. Do you want to go into this one?
Yes, well, it's a bit interesting because Kane Corns loves to talk about contracts. We know this. And St Kilda are obviously the biggest team at the moment in terms of offering contracts. But it has been heavily rumoured, heavily rumoured that we are getting Tom De Koning and that he will agree to a deal. It is reported that it's $12 million over 7 years. And I would love if we could get him because it would work very well alongside Marshall and King, where Marshall plays forward and De Koning plays full-time rock, similar to what Paddy Ryder and Rowan Marshall did in 2020. However, Kane Corns hates it because he always does. Why would he like something St Kilda related? It's Kane Corns. But
Classic.
in terms of the offer, we have the salary cap. It's not like it's an outrageous thing where we're offering $5 million.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's
we
true.
probably could, for all I know. But we have the salary cap and we could still offer someone else this amount of money. He is someone that could very easily be a top 15 player in the league. I think that he's got that potential. He's showing it this year so far. And he'd be our ruckman for the future because Rowan Marshall's already 30.
That's crazy.
So he started late Marshall, which is why he's on the older side.
Yeah.
But again, for a ruckman, he is sort of just hitting his prime now because that's sort of the age to do it. But from what Caden Corn said, he's a ruckman. Do you think Fremantle have learned from Luke Jackson? I kept hearing he can do everything. How influential has Luke Jackson been for Fremantle? He was, I believe, the highest rated player all round against West Coast. So you're a bit wrong there, Kane. And Luke Jackson is absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah, I was going to say, Luke Jackson is very, very influential.
It's
for
Sean
what-
Darcy that's
for
the
what
one there in the
Freo has
wrong.
been doing. Yeah, Luke Jackson has been quite influential.
Sean Darcy's
Obviously,
the one
it
that
hasn't
could lead.
resulted what they have looked for just yet.
No.
But I mean, they've seen some pretty decent results since
Yeah.
he's joined the club. Certainly better than what Carlton's doing.
And this is something I've seen online a lot. Everyone's saying that he can't win a flag at Carlton, so go chase the bag. Guess what? It's probably got a better chance of winning the flag at Saints than Carlton at the moment.
I think it's close.
Tough call, but
I think it's close. You could be onto something.
We've got a better future than they do.
I think if you add TDK into that ruckman kind of flow, absolutely, that forward line is scary, man. That's a good forward line. That's a very good forward line.
Thank you.
You didn't do anything to do it.
Hey.
Don't act like
Anyway.
you're the one who's bringing TDK to Saints.
I am. I am factually the one
He
who's
watches
doing
the
it.
podcast.
Yeah.
All right. Let's move on, I reckon.
Interesting segment we have right here. Very interesting
We're
segment.
getting really into these like analytical looks
And I
at
love
certain
it.
teams,
I
at
love it.
games. I think it's a really, really nice
Yep.
look, though, because these two are going to be in battle next round in a really, really interesting matchup
Yep.
on Gold Coast's midfield specifically and Adelaide's forward line. We've talked about them. Probably Adelaide's forward line a bit more than Gold
Yep.
Coast's midfield, but both are, I think, right now at the peak of their powers. Right, Took Miller coming off a fantastic game for Gold Coast, really upping that midfield already as
Yep.
good as they've been. Matt Rowell, fantastic. Noah Anderson, fantastic. Sam Flanders, a bit lower disposal-wise than what we
just
expect
came
from him.
in this week, though.
But yeah, that put a goal on the board, was effective. Gold Coast scary in that midfield. But we've said it so many times, Adelaide's forward line is so scary in so many different ways.
Yep.
Right? The height and the strength they have mixed in with the roamers around the pack and the drop of the ball that we've already mentioned, the names that came to mind at the start of the podcast. This is going to be a super interesting look
Yeah.
at which one holds up more. In my opinion, I think this is at People First Stadium, yes.
Correct. The way I say it, let's go through the backline matchups. So for Adelaide's forward line, it'll be Sam Collins on Riley Thilthorpe, I'm assuming.
Yep.
I think that is... Actually, no. Changing my mind. I think it'll be Mac Andrew on Riley Thilthorpe and Sam Collins on Taylor Walker. Sam Collins is probably more interested in getting a physical battle. Taylor Walker is probably that bigger bodied, so that's probably where they'd go with that. Mac Andrew would then go to Riley Thilthorpe, and that leaves Joel Jeffrey into taking on Darcy Fogarty with no Charlie Ballard. That is a bit more difficult for them.
Yep.
But that's still pretty good in terms of possible matchups. Then you've got Will Powell, who probably goes to Ben Keys. I dare say there's no ranking in the forward line. He's playing pretty much midfield time. So that's where that matchup goes to. I dare say you've got Daniel Rioli will go to probably James Peatling. Peatling sort of plays on that halfback flanker role and does a good job on him normally. So I think that's where that matchup will go because Daniel Rioli provides a lot of pace and ball use off of halfback.
Yep.
John Noble as well probably sit around that spot as well. He probably needs to take a bigger role given he's playing slightly more halfback and wing this year. And with obviously Rioli being shut down, that'll be really important. And then you go to the midfield battle. You got Witts and O'Brien. Whilst they're very different ruckmen, they both don't provide a lot around the ground. So how they battle in the midfield is going to be very important. You got Dawson, Rankin, Crouch, Saligo versus Rowell, Anderson, Miller, Flanders, Humphrey in there when he goes.
Oh, man. Adelaide's midfield is good.
It works really well.
But Gold Coast
the pure
is
talent.
really good.
Took Miller was fantastic on the weekend.
It's not even
kicked
just
3
pure
goals.
talent. They're producing results now.
Yeah.
Which
yeah.
is what the Suns have needed for so long. And consistent results is what we hopefully see this year.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm really hopeful that this midfield battle ends up going Gold Coast's way because of the fact that we need to see them play consistently now.
Correct.
It can't be an on week and an off week, but
No.
your on weeks are so good that they make up for your off weeks. It just can't happen. It just can't happen. So this should be a midfield battle won by Gold Coast.
Yep.
But then we move to the other side, which will be Gold Coast forwards and Crows
Dare say-
backs. This
yeah.
is probably the weakest matchup of them all.
You've got...
But you say that,
Yeah.
you start off with Ben King.
Yeah, so Ben King is going to be a very difficult matchup. I don't see Mark Keane doing anything. Nick Murray, I don't believe, is playing. And I don't see Josh Worrell potentially going on him or even McElhaney. They just don't have the height and reach to be able to go with King in the air. So it will be Mark Keane. Up there, it's going to be a very difficult matchup. Ben King struggled in front of goal. Could have easily kicked 7.
Oh,
on the
yeah.
weekend.
No, absolutely.
Very easily. He just couldn't kick straight. I think he probably kicks 5 again this week. I think he takes a huge leap in the Coleman medal rankings. I know Larky's really pushing him at the moment.
Larky's 2 ahead at the moment.
But Ben King has only played 2 games. That's the difference.
Oh, my God. Yeah, you're right.
So he's got a game in hand.
Ben King's in a really good mood here, yeah.
Yeah, I think he starts off the season really well. And then you've got Ethan Reid, which, given probably James Borlase comes in, I think he goes to Ethan Reid, given there's no Nick Murray this week. Then you've got, who else is there?
Is Ben Ainsworth
Jed
in
Walter.
there at the moment?
Ben Ainsworth is a small forward. You've got Jed Walter as the other key forward. Josh Worrell probably goes to him, I dare say. And you got Ainsworth and McElhaney, probably the matchup you'd want. Humphrey, when he's playing in the forward line, will probably get who would take him? Maybe Perryman.
Yep.
Sorry, not Perryman.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Cumming.
Isaac Cumming. And then you've got Malcolm Roses as another small forward. Probably goes to Wayne Miller, I dare say, is the other one. So pretty clearly in almost every matchup that goes to Gold Coast. So whilst Adelaide's forward barely gets over the line, the midfield is slightly favoured towards Gold Coast. Forward line's very clearly favoured to Gold Coast.
Yep.
So for that, this is my prediction for the game. I think Gold Coast pretty comfortably get this win. I think this is a bit of a dip week for Adelaide. 3 really, really high weeks. It's tough to follow it up with a 4th in your first year of really doing it consistently. And it's also a tough trip. It's a really difficult stadium to win at now with Gold Coast performing well. And that's why I say, obviously, Gold Coast getting the win by 35 points.
Oh, I wouldn't go that far. Mm-hmm. I'd say 20. I think around 20. But I think it's going to be a shootout.
Yeah.
I really think there's going to be a shootout. Crows have shown already that they can put numbers on the board quick.
Yeah.
Obviously, they had a 61-point win against Essendon, but that was 161 to 100. We haven't seen one of those.
Yep.
It feels like in a really good while, but I think this is going to be a high-scoring, really fun watch. I think it's going to be, at the end of the day, a really fun watch. And so maybe in the shootout type fashion, it will just naturally become a big margin because both teams are scoring so much to the point where one team, just not even because the defense is bad, but because the offense is so good, just keep putting numbers on the board.
Yeah.
But I think both sides can keep up with each other to the point where it can still stay within 20. But if this is within a goal, I'll be surprised.
Yeah, for sure.
Within 10 points, maybe.
And the other Adelaide player that I forgot to mention was Alex Neil-Bullen. He's been very good for them this year.
Yes.
And he provides a lot of connection between their forwards and mids.
Yep.
But really interesting game because aside from Collingwood Carlton this week, which will be fantastic, and we'll talk about that very, very soon, this is the next best game in my opinion.
Yep.
So really exciting between these two teams. I predicted both to make finals. They're both looking pretty good. We'll just have to see how they play this week. But next, this is something that I want to talk about, which is the list changes from last year and grading the new recruits for each team. I've named everyone that's not from the draft. I don't want to have players that are really early into their career.
Yep.
And I've added both trades and free agency players at the best of my abilities. So, starting with Adelaide.
Hey, hold on. What the hell? Oh, it was bound to happen.
It was bound to happen.
It was bound to happen. All right, let's grade the league.
So, starting with Adelaide, Alex Neil-Bullen. He's been pretty good for them. They've been a really good team so far this year. He's part of that connection piece, as I just talked about. I give him a B+. Hasn't kicked too many goals, hasn't been fantastic in terms of disposal-wise, but has just done his role to a great ability.
I was going to say his impact is clearly being felt. I was going to say B+ to A-.
Yeah. For James Peatling, pretty similar. I think he's taking the opposition's best halfback flanker, and he's doing a pretty good job so far at stopping them. Done a good job on Sinclair, did a good job on Sheasel. I think he was on for part of the game.
Yes, I was going to say, I remember Peatling coming up a lot. I'd be more interested in giving him the A- over Neil-Bullen's B+, because while B+ is still a good one, I think... I think Peatling has been a little bit more impactful than Neil-Bullen so far. So I'd give him the edge, but they've both been really good.
Yeah, 100%. And then Isaac Cumming, at the moment, I'm giving a C. I just don't see the value yet that he has provided to this team.
Yeah, and I'll probably go something similar. Yeah, I'll go C plus.
Yep.
I'm more tempted to give them the positive outlook just because of how good Adelaide have started.
Fair. For Brisbane, we've had Sam Day. That's their only real trade or off-season signing.
I haven't heard much about Sam Day.
He's played one game, so there's not really been a lot to talk about, but I thought he provided a decent role. All he needs to do is fill in. He doesn't need to do a Joe Danaher performance. He just needs to fill in.
Yep.
And I think he's done that at a fine level, so I'll give that a C+.
I will also give it a C plus. I think I'm just trying to read up on his statistics. Yeah, didn't do too much against Geelong, not too impactful, but the 3 marks, 4 tackles. He's doing what he needs to. A
Yep.
little bit in the hit outs as well. So he's getting involved, I guess, and it doesn't look like he's any type of liability for them either. He's just trying to fill a hole.
Which we'll talk about right now. For Carlson, Nick Haynes,
Oh, this one's fun.
D-.
Mate. Oh, I want to give him F so bad. I want to get. Has he played since round 1? He has played since round 1, right?
I believe he stayed in the team.
Oh my god, that's insane. Round 1 was like watching a clown show. I'm sorry. Not just
Between
on Nick,
him and
not just
McMuffin.
on Nick Haynes' part, but on all of their part.
Yeah.
But Nick Haynes was just so evident. It felt like every time he touched the ball, something went wrong. But yeah. No, I have to put him at F, man. That
Fair.
round 1 performance is just on my mind too much.
Yeah.
Too much. And if they're not winning games still, it's not like Nick Haynes is providing enough of a positive impact anyways. So that round 1 was funny as
was
well.
really bad.
For comedy reasons, A plus.
Next up, Frank Evans as well, picked up from Port Adelaide pre-season.
Has he played?
And he's played 2 games, I think.
Okay, so he has been a part of the
I'd
part of
give
the
him
team.
maybe a D+, C-. Hasn't really done anything. I don't even think he's kicked a goal as a small forward, so not that impressive.
I'll let you know if I know much about him because I don't think I've put enough effort into finding out as much about these off-season pickups. But just if I
My Carlton fan hates him, so that's where I'm basing this off.
lovely.
Yeah. So, Collingwood, Harry Perryman.
Okay. He's
I
been
think
all
I'd
right.
probably give him a B-.
I was going to say B.
Yeah, I don't think he's been too outstanding. He's failed
he's
my
done his
multis a couple
job.
times, so that's what I remember.
He's done his job though.
Yeah,
he has done his
hasn't
job,
been
except for your
anything.
multi. But then
Correct.
again, multis, big sports bet. It's just always going to happen. I don't blame him. I blame big sports bet.
Dan Houston, I think giving him a B+ because he's missed 1 game, was good against. Who did they play? He didn't play against GWS. Round 1. Who did they play?
They played Port.
Yeah, Port, and he played pretty well against Port.
I was going to say.
Wasn't great against the Bulldogs. Really struggled to get into the game, and then didn't play obviously this week due to the bye. B+ so far for me.
Yeah, I'll give him a B+ as well.
Yep.
I think with what you've said, I pretty much agree with most of it.
Yep.
So
And
I'll
then-
go with B+. I was thinking A-, but that was based off of
Pushing
that first game against Port.
Yeah, second
So
game. But yeah,
second game. Yeah.
Tim Membry, probably B-.
Yeah, C+
Don't really-
for me.
yeah.
I think he's had a few moments where you're like, oh,
Kicked
bit
4
rough.
or whatever it was against Port Adelaide, but
that was
didn't
again
do anything.
everyone. If we're judging everyone off that, everyone on Collingwood in round 1, everyone would be in the high Bs to A's.
yeah, and then didn't do anything against the Bulldogs.
I was going to say Bulldogs. I remember
tough-
him making
tough,
some
yep.
questionable decisions
Yep.
against the Bulldogs. So
Jackson Pryor for Essendon. For me, this is actually a really good pickup. I'm giving this a B. I really like what he's done so far. I think they needed that really locked down, physical small defender, and that's what he's done. So I give him a B. Any note for him?
I've seen his name pop up, but I don't know enough. But
Fair
just
enough.
a quick squiz at the stats. He's doing his thing. 19 posies against Port Adelaide. Clearly played his part.
Yep. Tom Edwards played the 1 game, debuted against Port Adelaide. Just give him a C. I don't really think you can say too much. Just the 1 game,
Yep.
First game as well in AFL footy. Fremantle, Shea Bolton, big pickup. Hasn't necessarily lived up to the
I was
hype.
going to say there's a few things here and there. You
He-
expected him to bring so much
Yeah.
to the table, but
Yeah.
he hasn't gotten there yet.
He is a really tough player to add into a system because he changes it completely, and they just haven't found that connection with him so far. I'll give him a B- at the moment. I just think there's so much more room for improvement. And then they also picked up Isaiah Dudley, kicked a couple goals on the weekend.
Yeah, he was
very
exciting
good.
to watch,
Yeah.
man. 168 centimetres going around kicking goals like
Mm-hmm.
that. He was exciting to watch in that first quarter.
Yeah.
So I'd give him his performance. Look, he's done his job
Mm-hmm.
and exceedingly well, but not enough that makes you go, wow, this guy's the
Such a
future of their forward line.
small
I
sample
think
size.
B plus,
Yep.
B plus to A minus,
Fair.
and then I'd say a C for Shea because
Okay.
we had a lot of expectations for Shea,
Yep.
and he is immediately not. Well, he hasn't immediately come in and shown those signs.
Mm-hmm.
And while we do expect him to pick it up, I think there is a level of expectation as to where he should be. I saw him get some midfield minutes against West Coast, and he still, at times, looked outclassed by a lot of those West Coast midfielders.
Mm-hmm.
So, look, not bad from Shea. Definitely not the worst
No.
recruit.
Yeah.
But
Nick Haynes.
Yeah, I was going to say Nick Haynes. But yeah,
Anyway, Elliot Himmelberg for Gold Coast. I don't think he's played.
I was gonna say, I don't think I've even
can't
seen
give
him.
anything to him at the moment. Just a C. Daniel Rioli, I'll go A minus.
yeah, A
I
minus
think
as well.
he hasn't blown the roof off the house or anything.
But he's been so impactful.
Yeah, and Johnny Noble as well kicked a goal, first goal for Gold Coast against Melbourne. They've only played the 2 games, so how much can you really take out of it?
But that's kind of what we're going with off all this. We're just
Yep.
going.
Yep.
We're just rating
Immediate.
them off of right now.
Yeah,
So
I'll give him a B.
yeah, I'll give him a B plus.
Yeah.
Positive outlook. Gold Coast doing really well. He's
Yeah.
helping them out.
Yeah, due to rest, Jake Stringer only pick up C.
C.
He's played 1 game, didn't really look too good.
C. Yeah, I was going to say C plus, but again, I don't remember seeing him all that often against Hawthorn.
Yeah,
So
Hawthorn, Josh Battle, A.
yeah,
Tom Barras, A minus.
yeah.
I think Battle's-
Yeah, I was going to switch
yeah.
him around, but I think Battle has been more impactful.
What he did on Charlie Kerno last week was really impressive.
Yeah.
Melbourne, Tom Campbell hasn't played. C. Harry Sharp played 1 game.
Greatest
I thought he
journeyman
looked
of
good.
all time, though, Tom Campbell.
Yep, love him. Harry Sharp looked pretty good, so I'll give him a C plus. And then Jack Henderson looked all right, I must say. So I'll give him a C plus as well.
Don't know much about how they've played again. My poor research and lack of ball knowledge.
Yes, you are idiot. Anyway, North Melbourne. This is the one you
Please
can
say it with a
specialise
proper
in.
sentence.
No, North Melbourne. Caleb Daniel, go.
Or B plus.
Jack Darling,
B plus as well.
Luke Barker,
B.
Jacob Constanti.
A minus.
Love it. Port Adelaide, Jack Lukosius, got injured. Good game.
Hard
bad
to
game.
really give him a grade, but for the sake of this, we've seen him play. His impact while he was playing, you sickly germ you are. In the small sample size that we got to see of him, how do you reckon he did?
I'll give him a B minus, whatever.
Yep.
Joe Richards, B minus as well. I think he's been fine. Rory Atkins, D plus. Don't know why he was involved, to be honest. That's very simple. Richmond didn't pick anyone up, so
Richmond as a club currently is a D minus.
yeah, basically. Jack McRae for St Kilda, A plus.
A plus,
Genuinely.
yeah, no. He has picked up the form that the Dogs lost out of him. And I'm
Yeah.
shocked to see. I thought Jack was on the way out with the way he was playing. Clearly, the Dogs just weren't using him correctly.
Yep. Harry Boyd, I'm going to give a D minus. He did not look good against Adelaide whatsoever. So I think he's really struggled. I don't think you need to talk about him. For Sydney, Ben Patton,
Oh.
St Kilda drop out. So I'll talk about him. C minus, I think. Just sort of filling in that role, playing alongside Harry Cunningham. You know, nothing too crazy. Sort of mid, half back. So, all right. West Coast, Liam Baker. I give that an A minus. I think he's been pretty solid.
Yeah, I give B plus. B plus.
Yeah.
He has been solid.
Yeah.
I think there has been times where he's definitely been needed and he hasn't shown up as much. But then again, I don't know how much you want a small halfback flanker to impact the game.
Yeah. Jack Graham, I give probably a B. Or B minus maybe. I don't think he's been as worth.
B minus.
Yeah. And then Matt Owies, I'm giving a C minus.
Yeah,
D.
I was going to say
He
D
really
plus.
hasn't done anything.
I really hoped he'd show out, but he's just he's looked
struggled.
unfortunately like he still hasn't found his spot.
Yeah. And then Western Bulldogs, final one, Matt Kennedy,
Had a good game against Carlton.
A minus. I think he's been really good.
I'll give him A minus. I think I went along with you a lot during that section, but again, my ball knowledge and research has not been great. At the same time, though, I have been trying to pay attention to these players here and there. I think it's just more the ones that give you the excitement, right? The ones that really want you. So, like the Daniel Rioli, the Liam Baker are the ones that I know and have been paying attention to a lot. Dan Houston, everyone will be paying attention to. Those big names, I think, of the moves. will probably be the ones that get the most attention. I don't know how big the North ones are. I've just been paying attention to it because it's North.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I'm just thankful that it seems that North have made some good decisions.
Yes,
Not
finally.
amazing, but
Yes.
happy stories like Jacob Constantine. He's someone that I think we absolutely benefit with.
Mm-hmm.
But we're not going to make it about North. We're going to now move on to, it looks like, our final segment before we go into our predictions. We had kind of pointed out that we wanted to talk a bit about Port Adelaide, because Port Adelaide's succession plan with Ken Hinkley moving out of the way for, I have forgotten his name. Josh Carr, that's right. I don't know how good this move is. I think it feels a bit like a respect kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I really think this just needed to be
Just a quick switch
let him
over.
go. Maybe it's for Josh Carr's sake, get him an idea as to what the coaching role is going to look like. But at the same time, I wouldn't want Ken Hinkley to be the role model for what that coaching is going to look like.
Okay, I'll put it this way. Problem with hiring a new coach is they're outside of your club. They need to come into a new whole system, and they might want to add in their own new thing and do their own thing, right? Having someone as a succession plan that is Josh Carr, he's already in the club. He already knows how they operate. He already knows who he's working with. To then say, hey, we're almost giving up on this year because we know how Hen Hinkley performs.
Hinkley?
Ken Hinkley.
Hen Hinkley's a bit mad.
That was crazy.
Oh, you got a bit red there, mate. What's up with that?
So Ken Hinkley, the club knows how he performs, both in the regular season and in finals. They have history over 13 years or whatever it is, that whilst he can perform sometimes during the regular season, they often struggle with their game plan in finals. The game plan doesn't work. They've shown that. They have decided, hey, we know the game plan doesn't work, but we're going to give you one final year as a send-off. That's so middle ground that A, you're not giving a proper chance to completely change the list and try give one last chance to Hinkley, like you might if you just come out and say that. And you're not giving Josh Carr the chance to potentially be able to bring and implement his own list a year before. So you're so middle ground that you're not doing one thing for one coach and you're not doing the other thing for the other coach. You're just sticking fat with something that you know doesn't work. And that is just a really dumb off-field decision.
Yeah. I'm just very much under the idea that I really do believe that this should have been a quick transition of power. I think Ken is... Look, he's gotten them to some decent positions, but too many times it feels like he's just needed to be moved on from, and I feel like this is just dragging it out. Mm-hmm. And maybe I'm thinking too short term. Maybe I'm thinking of what this could do for Josh Carr in the sense of how this will impact the way he enters the club.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just feel like it's about time for Port to move on from him.
Yeah.
And this feels like it's dragging it out. And
It has.
I'm not a fan of the idea. I think it'd be better off at other clubs. But I guess credit to Ken Hinkley for looking after the club for 13 plus years. Because, I mean, to be in a job for that long, they've clearly have to know something.
Yeah,
it's just more the idea, right, of I feel like this should have just happened a long time ago.
Yeah.
Let's move on, though. Finally, we've got our round 4 predictions. Once again, we are very close to running out of time. So we're going to go through this quickly, as quick as we possibly can.
Mm-hmm.
First off, buys, Hawks and Bombers. Hawks, well-deserved buy, and Bombers get to go off on a bit of a high. They finally get a win. So
Live in it for 2 weeks, SNFA is just going to come
that's
crashing
it.
down.
Oh, mate, I'd be very happy. I'd be very, very happy.
Yeah.
First off, Pies versus Blues. This is the big one for the week. Thursday night at the MCG. This is going to be huge. This is certainly not a D's versus Suns matchup. That's for certain. What are we thinking?
It's going to be 8,000 versus 92,000. Add them together, you get an average of 50.
Yeah, the average is all that matters, realistically.
This is a really interesting game. Pies coming off a bye could struggle. We've seen certain teams struggle coming off a bye. Mm-hmm. Compared to the Blues' 0-3 start. Collingwood's midfield versus Carlton's midfield is probably the key matchups. There's going to be some selection headaches for Collingwood as well. Myercheck should be back. Whether they go with McStay, Myercheck and Memory, the M&Ms.
That's so cringe.
Shut up.
That's so
Let me
cringe.
be. Or they want to stick fat with Mason Cox. We'll have to see. But the midfield, as I mentioned, you're going to have DeConing versus Cameron, two really exciting ruckmen. Both have been fantastic this year. And then you've got Walsh, Cripps, Hewitt, Chera versus Dacos, Pendlebury, Sidebottom, Jack Crisp, John DeGoey. They spread their midfield very evenly. And then also Darcy Moore and Jacob Wiedering. We'll see how they go because Jacob Wiedering has been fantastic. Darcy Moore looks to be back at his best. How they go against two teams that don't really have a key forward. It all depends on if Harry Mackay comes back, in my mind.
Yeah, fair enough. It definitely will add some more threat, and I think that's probably what Carlton have been begging for. Maybe the reason they came out looking so good against Hawthorn because they finally had their two-headed monster in Charlie Curnow and Harry Mackay.
But they didn't.
I thought they did.
No, Harry Mackay was laid out.
Oh, he was laid out. That's why I'm forgetting it. Yep. Because I was like, I'm certain I saw him on the listing for that game. He was, but laid out. Nonetheless, on paper, this looks like a matchup that should be close.
Yes.
But obviously, Pie's playing with house money, with all the confidence in the world. Carlton's still looking to try and find their footing. This could be the game to do it.
100%.
I think in an atmosphere like this, it could happen. But we had a similar one with Richmond.
Yeah.
And we saw how that turned out.
Yep.
I think this is going to the Pies. And I'm going to go by 5 goals.
I definitely won't go that far. I think it'll be probably a 2-goal game to Collingwood. However, I'm like 49%, 51%.
Yep.
I could see this just being the game that can't say, hey, big crowd, big atmosphere.
It's time for us to wake up.
Time for us, literally. And I think Curnow, if he's not on on Darcy Moore, then the matchup's going to be really difficult because there's no Reeve McInnes anymore and he'd probably be the lockdown to go to him. So it probably could be Jeremy Howe. And I just don't see how that really fits together. They might need to bring in a Billy Frampton and I could see that working. But it all depends on how they stop Charlie Curnow in my mind. I have every chance of tipping Carlton as a late, but
there's a chance.
At the moment,
there is a chance.
At the moment, I'm going Collingwood.
It's
by
too
12.
hard. It's just too difficult to pick Blues at this point in time. I think we can go quickly through Cats D's. I think this is going to be a comfortable one
back
for
to
the
winning
Cats
ways.
at GMHBA. They really should take care of this one. I'd even say 50 plus.
I'd say 40, 45.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Suns versus Crows. We've already talked about this.
Yeah.
I don't think we gave. Oh, we did give an outcome.
I said mine by about 5 goals or 6 goals.
I think I said Suns by 20.
Yeah, you did.
So
both
the
Suns.
same idea, but again, Crows could take it.
Yep.
This is a game where we know the Crows could take it.
Yep.
And again, like I said, I think this will be a high-scoring game.
Yep.
Tigers versus Lions.
80 points. Let's move on.
Oh, don't know. That just gives me flashbacks to Richmond v Carlton. Oh, imagine they do it again at the MCG.
Oh, that'd be crazy.
Oh my god, that
That'd
could be
awesome.
amazing.
Anyway, let's
I
move on.
agree though.
Yeah.
Roos versus Swans at Marvel. I think this is going to
Crazy
be
good
close.
game.
I, for some reason, have some confidence with this game.
100% you should.
I think
Yep.
the Roos take it by a goal.
I'm not going that far. I still
Only a
think
goal, mate.
I still think the experience of Sydney, the fact that they should get a couple players back now as well. They had the bye, so they'll be well rested after a really
They
difficult
don't get
start
Errol
to the
back,
year.
do they?
No, they don't. He
Oh,
won't be
thank
back
God.
for another month and a bit, I
Oh.
don't believe. But I just think that Heaney should be back to his best now. Warner's been really, really solid. Braden Campbell's now starting to break out. I think he's had a very underrated season.
He's always been one that I've been trying to keep an eye out on.
Yep. McCartan has to stay back. You cannot just say that.
Please
we
put him
lost
forward.
McElligott.
Let's go, Dean.
He needs to sit on Larkey, because if he doesn't sit on Larkey, then there's no chance of Sydney winning. Genuinely, no chance. I want to see how Cunningham goes on Curtis, because I dare say that's the matchup. Blakey probably sits on Zerha, and Rampy sits on Zerha. Blakey goes to Darling, I think.
Yeah.
That's probably more so where it goes. I just think that they're going to be a much more experienced and a much more suited side to playing at Marvel than someone like a Melbourne was. So
What are you saying the outcome is?
Sydney by 18 to 20.
Okay.
3 goals-ish.
Yep.
You'll perform really well, though, again, and that's
I
promising.
have confidence in this one, and I'm not exactly sure why, but they've given me reasons to hope
Yeah.
in the last 2
Yeah.
weeks. They've beaten a
100%.
Melbourne side that obviously isn't going to be great, but they've beaten them comfortably, which
Yeah.
is fantastic to see. And they were pretty competitive despite the 36-point outcome. They showed heart and a fair bit of fight in that Adelaide game in a situation that was very much against them. Right, at Adelaide, home Adelaide, big crowd, like one of the biggest Adelaide crowds I think I've seen in a good while.
Yeah.
So, fair play to them for keeping in it. But again, came out as expected. I don't think that means Roos are going to just wow us with talent, but I think they've got a chance.
Yeah, for sure.
GWS versus Eagles.
80 points. Let's move on.
Yeah.
Port Saints.
Yeah.
Port Saints.
Port Saints.
I'm tipping the upset here.
You're going against your 2-3? Or are you
Yeah.
saying Port's the upset?
I'm going against the. Actually, no, never mind. I'm not going against the upset. I'm tipping Port. I think it's just Port Adelaide at home. That's sort of the thing. It's going to be a similar thing to Gold Coast last year, where they're really good at home, struggle away. It's sort of what you get now with a succession plan, where you need something to get going.
Well, with the way that Adelaide fans have been showing up and turning that ground into a proper, like a really good advantage for their home teams. Yeah, Port could run with the wind here. They smacked a Tigers team that most teams should be doing, but at the same time, you've got to, at the end of the day, you've got to show up and perform, and they most certainly did.
Yeah. Also, if we do get some players back like Jack Steele, like Max King, like Liam Henry, then I probably will change my tip. But other than that, I'm tipping Port.
I was going to say, I'm going Port as well. Yeah, I'm not sure a margin at the moment because I think this is one that's really up for change still. But Port at the moment. And then final one, Dockers v Dogs at Optus Stadium. So are we going the home ground advantage with the team coming off of a win against the Derby rival? Or are we going with the overperforming Dogs who have been wowing the world with their young guns?
I'm going with the Dockers. I think this is a tough game for Bulldogs. I don't know how well they normally play against Fremantle. That's something not really in my mind. But I think you talk about the midfield battle, very interesting now. But it will be English versus Jackson. Whoever wins that battle, and I think Jackson does pretty clearly, will set up their midfield. And I see the Dockers pretty clearly winning. I think Tracy and Amos now getting in form. They will now really shock the Bulldogs backline.
I'm going to go against the grain.
Fair.
I think they're showing a lot of signs of a team that is stepping up to the plate, finding ways to get around games and situations that people point them out of. And Freo have been very underwhelming.
They have.
Very, very underwhelming.
Oh, for sure.
And I think this is a game that could really, really shock them. But this is where we come to an end for episode number 6 of Zero Access Footy.
Oh, no.
He showed it again.
Thanks.
Oh, my God.
We're kicking you out and
That
getting
was
you out of
fantastic.
other
Anyways,
Nathan.
on that same note, if you want to make fun of us a little bit more, be sure to go and follow us on these accounts, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. Be sure to follow us all there, subscribe where necessary, and rate us 5 stars on Spotify as well if you are an audio listener. So thank you again, everybody, very, very much for tuning in to episode number 6. I thank Bem again for co-hosting alongside me, and I thank producer Ethan for the fantastic photos.
God.
I hope that we can do something like this again next week and have a fantastic chat because there was a lot that we got to go through.
There
And
was.
I think we were a bit more analytical, which
Yes.
there's positives and negatives to it, but I think we really got the positives out of it, especially making the most of those dogs on TikTok. So, again, thank you guys so much for tuning in. I hope to see you guys for episode 7 next week. Let us know how you are thinking about this weekend's matchups. And, thank you for tuning in. I'll see you all next time. Catch you later.